Hi, I'm James McGuire, and on today's video, we're looking at the big picture of what's going on with artificial intelligence in the enterprise. We're diving into all the hot topics, agentic AI, AI literacy in the C-suite, or lack thereof. We'll talk about the democratization of AI, and we'll discuss whether AI will humanize us. That's a big topic. To talk about all that, I'm joined by a combination technology expert and part-time philosopher. With me is Nabil Bukhari, Chief Technology and Product Officer at Extreme Networks. Nabil, absolutely thrilled to have you with us today.
James, it's always a pleasure. Thank you for having me here. And I love that part-time philosopher thing. I try.
Well, the thing I think I joke about that because you really put things to sort of a larger context. And I think when it comes to artificial intelligence, it's the one technology I've covered, unlike say cloud or AI, IoT, that really will change human life in a pretty profound, even spiritual level.
Absolutely, right? And I know that was the last topic that we were going to talk about, but if we were to jump to that first, it's
Sure.
absolutely, I 100% believe it. And I know, James, you and I have talked about this before as well. The more and more AI becomes really good at doing the day-to-day things, and even, jobs that we used to do, AI will get better at it. There is no doubt at it. It will get better at humans. It already almost is.
Hmm.
The big philosophical question, as you were pointing out, is that well, what happens to humanity? And there are two views to it. One is the dark view, which is like, oh my God, we could be subservient to the AIs and the whole Skynet
Right.
and Terminator and stuff. I don't really believe in that. I'm a way more positive person. And
Hmm.
I really believe that it will force us and it will allow us the time to become more human. Think about it this way. If AI can, write things better than us. AI can, do work better than us. It can code better than us. It can create a website better than us. All the things that the last 30, 40 years humans have tried really hard to become experts at. If AI can do all of those things better than us, then what is left? Well, we humans are better at empathy. We humans
Mm.
are better
Hmm.
at imagination. We
Hmm.
humans are better at connecting. And those qualities will become really unique, and those qualities would be, I think, well sought after. So there's a place for humans, in this entire picture, and that is by being more human and not machine-like, if that makes sense. That's how I believe about
It,
it.
it, it really does, and clearly we're going to be better at empathy, imagination. I hope so on that one. There was this recent debate about quantum computing, whether or not it's going to be here or whether it's real or not, and there was a little big scuffle about that. And I think the CEO of Microsoft said, "Well, it's going to be 15 years." Of course, that feels like a long time, but the reality is it will be here eventually. And I think about the idea of a quantum computer powering AI, and AI itself will be so developed by that time. If you dare to look 15 years ahead, the abilities and capabilities of AI by that time will be like mind-boggling. I mean, we may look back at these, GPUs today and go, they were pretty primitive. And so I guess I'm wondering, empathy, no doubt, but the question is, what happens to jobs? What happens to us? Delivering things when we have self-driving cars. That becomes that's a difficult question.
That is, and I think, and I've spoken about it quite a bit, and I really believe that as you started by saying that this is one of those technologies that'll probably have the most profound effect on not us just as humans, but us as societies as well.
Hmm.
So the fact that there will be lesser number of jobs as we understand them today, that is a given. It's
Right.
just a matter of by how much and how quickly. Then the question is that will those jobs be replaced by other jobs, as has happened in previous phases or previous different technologies? Or would it be that those jobs would not needed to be done at all? And in that case, what would you and I spend our times doing? And those are all big questions that we have to confront and we have to think about. And there's a positive side and a negative side. One is a dark view, but other one is the positive view. I really believe in the positive and the brighter view of it. And coming back to the imagination part, and we'll bring it back, into the actual technology side, most of the stuff that AI is doing right now, it has been trained on the data that were produced by humans.
Right.
So there is a big question, an unknown right now, that when the data produced by humans is done, we have trained them on all of the data that is possible, then what happens?
Mm.
Do we train AI on data produced by other AI? Do we train them on data produced by AI itself? It's a little bit of an unknown. So if I were to put my 2 cents on or 20 cents on something, I would say when it comes to imagination, creating something completely new out of nothing, I think humans will have a leg up for considerable amount of time. That's my thought around it.
Yes, I want to believe that, and let's hold out hope for that. And I mean, it seems like human songwriters, human writers, human storytellers. They've always proven it in the past. So let's keep our eyes open for that. In the meantime, we're here in this year 2025. Agentic AI seems to be really a huge topic for this year. I'm wondering what trends you think are driving agentic AI this year. Specifically, my view, I think we're benefiting from the rise of small language models. I mean, you don't need an LLM to do agentic AI totally. An SML can be trained individually. What do you see for agentic AI?
Yeah, first off, James, you're spot on. I mean, like every year in the last 2, 3 years, every year has brought a different kind of focus of AI, a different hype cycle, if you would. And
Hmm.
I think AI is at the top of that hype cycle right now. So some of the things that have really pushed it to the forefront. So small language models, absolutely, because cost is of importance, right? The second part is some of these newer advancements, even on the LLM side, which are more around reasoning LLMs or, a mix of expert style, those are somebody that is driving it a little bit because now they're not just predictive, as in like a typical LLM back in the day when it really started, it was really predicting what would be the next word in this sentence. Now, I'm really, that's kind of gross oversimplification, but
Right.
in reality, that's what it was doing. But some of the newer LLMs have the capability to actually reason. And they say like, oh, well, James has asked me this question. In order to find this question, I need to get three pieces of information. Let me go get that piece. So that's reasoning. So that's new. LLMs didn't used to do that before. Actually, the reasoning LLMs are, gosh, like maybe like a month or 2 months old, right? It really started very recently. Deep research from OpenAI, DeepSeek, and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And mix of expert, that started with, the DeepSeek as well, which is like, you don't need to use the entire LLM for everything. That's as efficient and gives you the same amount of results. So some of these technologies are really what is spurring the whole AI agent side. But there are some non-technical reasons for that as well. And one of the things is ROI. People
Is
are
what? I'm sorry.
It's the ROI of investment on AI.
Oh,
So
okay. Right.
a lot of enterprises are now genuinely asking, okay, so what is it that AI is going to do for me? Sure, I have started using it in writing my emails and this and that and my marketing copy and stuff. So all of the what I consider to be very early use case, the accelerate use cases, they are now there and people are thinking about it and they're saying like, okay, well, why do we keep investing millions and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars into it? I'm not talking about the infrastructure side. I'm talking about the application side.
Hmm.
So that's driving this that AI needs to not just think and say and write, it has to do. It has to create action. And that's what's also spurring the whole agentic AI side. The last part is the agency side of it, right? So how much of an agency the agent will have?
Right.
How much would I allow it to do? I think recently I think OpenAI or one of those people, they showed us like, agents can go and make reservations for you. And
Sure.
that's agency. I'm allowing it to do something on my behalf. So how far will I let it do? Would I allow an AI agent to make financial decisions for me? That's
Hmm.
very high agency. Like making a reservation is a low agency. So these are all the questions that are swirling around, and it is between technology, it is between economics, which is return on investment, and this more fundamental question of agency. So these are all the things that are driving agents forward. And I think we are just starting the age of agents. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the question of agency among agents really is the question because I think about, one of the uses for agents is that, someone says, well, go buy me a refrigerator and have it delivered to my house. And the agent does all those tasks. And 7 days later, this large, refrigerator actually shows up. The question is, are you going to give the agent the ability to choose, a solar powered refrigerator, if there is such a thing?
Yeah,
I mean, that's going to be a real question. Like, how much do we trust our agents?
100%. And that's really what's it's driving towards because let me take a step back. So
Mhm.
when we talk about AI agents, people are like, well, how do I think about AI agents? And I always tell them that a good place to start with is the current job descriptions.
Hmm.
That's a great place to start with thinking about agents because think about what we do. We think about humans in the capacity of their jobs, at least on the work environment side. And you say, like, oh, well, this person is an engineer. Will you expect them to do these things? Well, this person is a marketing person. You expect them to do these things in finance and so on and so forth. So we define their jobs, and their jobs are kind of the construct in which we expect them to live in a corporate environment.
Sure.
So the best way to think about AI agents to describe their jobs, just like you describe a person's job. You say like, well, this agent is really a scheduler agent, which is very similar to call it for me like my executive assistant,
Right.
right? Now I'm going to be like, okay, well, for this scheduler assistant, I'm going to allow it or I'm going to give it the agency of scheduling my time. Those are the limits and the bounds within which it has to work, right?
It,
Like the
it can't
example.
order a refrigerator, for example.
Exactly, right?
Right.
And that is so critical because if we do not bound the definition or bound the agency for these AI agents, then it will become so difficult for us to wrap our heads around it. So I always tell people, write down the job description as if you're going to hire a person for it. And now you can create an AI agent to do the same thing, but the thought process starts from the same place. Now, that's not something we will be doing in 2 years from now, but
Sure.
it's a really good construct for today.
Interesting. All right. Well, that brings up the issue of the complications involved with artificial intelligence, and it is a very complicated technology. So I think the problem is AI literacy in the C-suite. Sometimes I think all the executives don't fully understand the technology, and in fairness, it's AI is far more complicated than cloud, for example. So, what can we done? What can we do to address the issue of AI literacy in the C-suite?
James, there is no easy way of saying it, so I'm going to just say it the way I think about it.
Just say it, Nabil,
We,
please.
we need to just do it. It's
Mm.
just most of I would say that the AI literacy in the C-suite is abysmal, not
You,
bad.
you mean they don't know what neural networks are, or how do you describe that really?
So think about most of the C-suite people, they have a hard time wrapping their heads around AI, right? So um, they have, of course, I don't need them to understand, how neural networks work or how LLMs are work and stuff like that, but they need to understand, in principle, at least, how are they different than any other technology, right? So that's an important part. Now think about, yes, AI is important, but AI is really truly a data revolution, right? So it's like, think about it this way. Um, if you have shit data and you apply AI on it, you'll just get faster shit, right? So
Right, right. That is unfortunately the way it works.
yeah, so that's another aspect of it. Third part of it is that how do you need to rethink your organization for you to either be able to use AI or create products that are around AI? The same siloed approach doesn't really work. So how are we typically organized in today's world? You're like, oh, this is a chief product officer, and this is a chief finance officer, and this is a chief legal officer. The
Mhm.
reality is, moment you pull AI into your company, you have to rethink that way because
Mhm.
AI has technology implications, financial implications, as well as legal implications. Now,
Sure.
you say that that was true for previous technologies as well, but not to this extent, right? So all of these things, and then regulations. Like think about this: every C-suite person has to understand regulation. We used to leave it to the chief legal officer and say
Right.
like he or she can deal with it. But now you need to understand that ethics. We used to leave that to the head of HR and say like, oh, you are responsible for ethics and stuff like that. Now the product people and the sales people and the finance people need to understand that. So the part is AI is breaking all sorts of silos and it is breaking organizational silos as well.
Mhm.
And from there comes this new breed of C-suite people who are not defined by a function.
Hmm.
That's the change that needs to happen. And the current C-suite needs to be involved in it, needs to learn that, and quite frankly, needs to guide it and define it rather than oppose it. And I see a little bit of opposition happening right now. So that's that. All of that is part of literacy, and in some cases, you know, you really have to start from what is an AI and what is machine learning and what is an agent.
Mhm.
You can't assume that people in, big titles, they actually know even the basics of it. In a lot of cases, they don't. And it's important that they do because they are the ones who are going to make these decisions. And if they do not have the basic knowledge and information around it, then it's kind of shooting in the dark. Then we don't know where the decisions will go. So I'm a huge fan of AI literacy for the C-suite and the board. And this is one of those cases where we can't say that, look, you've been in the field for 40 years, you have 40 years of experience. No, you have 0 years of experience when it comes to AI. So let's start from the start. I know it's going to hit a little bit of egos out
Mhm.
there, but
Mhm.
we can always learn something new. And when something new is as drastic as AI, then we are all in the first grade. And we should be delighted about that. We should be curious about it. And that's what I feel needs to happen in the C-suite, generally speaking.
Well, you're suggesting a world in which there's a certain amount of blurring between titles. I mean, the chief product officer and the chief financial officer might have more overlap between their jobs, but then that's one challenge. The other challenge is the technology itself changes so fast. I mean, you're talking about reasoning for agentic AI being relatively new. That's come out of, that's a new phenomenon really quite recently. And so not only do the folks have to learn about the technology, they've got to keep up with it constantly. It almost becomes a large part-time job.
It is. And so I agree that it becomes the job. I would say it's not a part-time job. It is the job.
Yeah, right. Well, then if a chief financial officer has to be tracking about what's going on with the accounting statements, et cetera, so they already have a pretty tough job.
Exactly. But think about it this way. Now the way the data for those, accounting reports is generated, the way the reports are generated, way you analyze the reports, the way you confirm the reports, the way you find errors in the report, all of those things are going to have AI embedded in it. So how can a person not know about AI and still be able to do those jobs? You know my point, right? And this is very overwhelming, right? It's extremely overwhelming to everybody. And there are two kind of reactions that we see. One reaction is like, wow, everything is going to change. So let me dive into it because we are at the very, very start of it. So if I get into it now, then I can grow with it. The
Hmm.
other reaction that we get is like, no, it's too overwhelming. This is not important. Stick your head in the sand kind of a thing.
Right.
Uh, but those are the two reactions that we're seeing out there. But there will be no job, there will be no function that does not have AI as a fundamental ingredient of it. And that's really when it becomes overwhelming. That's when people are like, wow, how do I deal with this? You know,
Yeah, I would agree. The one key takeaway there for me is that it now would be a good time to get it in because it's still relatively in the infancy. So don't let the train leave the station. Now would be some time for to read the primer.
so I'll
Yes,
give
go
you
ahead.
an example on that, James. So I was speaking at, this conference was like a bunch of C-suite in there.
Hmm.
And I told them, I was like, look, it doesn't matter what your title is, whether you're a technology exec or not. And my from our past conversations, I don't believe in this division of technology and business.
Right.
You're in a, you need to know technology, business, and human impact regardless.
Sure.
I was like, how many of you actually play with AI on your daily basis on your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it could be as simple as like, hey, I'm going to ask ChatGPT on, whatever, right? How to cook turkey,
Hmm.
right? By
Yeah,
the way,
exactly. Right.
that's a great use case at
In
Thanksgiving,
fact, I've literally have asked Chat that very question: how to cook a turkey burger.
right?
Yeah.
So it could be as simple as this to where you are actually downloading some of these models and running it locally because that's where the SMLs comes in. Like you can download them and you can play with them and you don't require any coding experience. And that's the beauty of it, right? I'll tell you this. I actually did this experiment with my wife. My wife is not from the technology side. I sent her 4 YouTube videos and they were all like 20 minutes each, right?
Hmm.
After the four of it, she was actually able to download a model and run it on her Mac.
Wow. Impressive. Okay.
Right?
So basically, about an hour or so of work really got
About
her
an
up to
hour.
speed.
About an hour of it, right? And of course, that's not that you'll create, like big on production and, all that kind of stuff. But just doing it by yourself allows you to really understand or start to understand the dynamics of it.
Hmm.
My recommendation to all C-suite people are get into it. Like, yeah, it's going to feel like, oh my God, we're in kindergarten when it comes to AI. That's okay. We were in kindergarten at some point in time, and
Hmm.
then we learned our way out of it. And
Hmm.
this is going to be the same way. You have to get involved. You have to get your hands dirty. You have to try it out. And that is the only way. And the difference would be people in like 3, 4 years, executives that would have had real experience on it, and executives who just still know the buzzwords. And
Right.
the difference would be very clear.
Hmm.
So, yeah,
Well,
it is the job now.
it is a big part, and it is growing bigger. And I think there's a macro trend in tech, the democratization of AI. So it's not just for the large companies with large amounts of money. There's consumer level apps. DeepSeek proved that you don't need to have $1 billion to create a model. So I think that the democratization of AI. So AI gets into the hands of regular people. Citizen journalists, citizen developers.
Yeah.
That's going to really change things.
So
Is the world ready for that?
ready or not, it is coming, right? And it is happening now. So think about this, all right? So to a bunch of my investment side friends, and we were sitting and we were having this conversation, and I said, like, look, what do you think is the most defining characteristics of AI? And different people said, like, oh, it speaks like human, it does things, and blah blah blah. And I was like, yes. And one of the most defining characteristics of AI is that it reduces the barrier to entry.
Hmm. For a business, you mean?
For anything. Like, for example, if I wanted to say that, hey, now all of a sudden, just sticking with the cooking thing, that I really want to get into Persian cuisine
Hmm.
or whichever cuisine, right?
Sure.
Now, earlier, I was like, okay, if at least I will have to do some research and I'll spend some days and stuff, I can just go ask AI right now. Now, that's a very simple question, like example. But think about businesses. Now, there used to be a time where, this is what cloud did, right? Cloud lowered the barrier to start
Totally.
a
Cloud was
company.
a democratizer for sure, because anyone could have a
So
data center.
startups didn't need a data center, they just started in the cloud. Now
Right.
take that and multiply that by 1,000. I can get into any industry, and my cost of creating an AI application in that industry is probably going to be factors lower than what it was in the SaaS world. So
Right.
this is factors lower, compared to even the SaaS world. So it is reducing the barrier to entry. Now there are a few things that happen. If the barrier to entry is lower, yes, it creates opportunities, but if you are incumbents, then your chances of becoming obsolete are pretty high.
Hmm.
Is all of a sudden you were like, oh, I'm in networking industry, you're in security industry, you're in storage industry, you're not going to come into my industry. Well, yeah, with AI, I can be in any industry in less than 6 weeks that I want. So competition will increase. These are all of the changes. And to me, they're all part of democratization. It's democratizing at a human level. It is or an individual level. It is democratization at the company or the organization level as well. So industries will look different in another 5 to 7 years, right? We will not have the same definitions as we have today. And to me, that's a beautiful thing. Why? Because when people from outside of that industry comes in, they bring what I call as the beginner's mind. And a lot of innovation really happens from the beginner's mind and not from an expert's mind.
Hmm.
And that's a different conversation altogether in itself. One of the biggest issues that we have around AI is that people are going at AI from an expert mind, and that they're getting frustrated, they are failing most of the times. You require a beginner's mind, to go after AI. Actually,
Hmm.
give this chat, in the next couple months at this venue, and the whole title is The Pitfall of the Expert Mind.
Ah.
And the biggest hurdle to success in AI is that expert mind. So coming back to the C-suite, and coming back to the democratization brings a lot of these beginner minds into the equation,
Mhm.
and that just changes the equation altogether. I am super excited about it because imagine if anybody could get anything done, then what would be the collective innovation of the human mankind?
Right. How might we move forward? I mean,
How much? move
Well,
forward.
one last thought about that. I don't even know what my question is here, but I took a ride in a Waymo self-driving car here in San Francisco. A friend of mine had a subscription. He just called and it showed up, and the car drove us across town. And we saw the steering wheel turn left and right, but there was no driver in the seat,
Yeah.
which was a pretty odd situation. And I was surprised because it was sort of like unemotional driving. Like there was the Waymo had to wait for this car to pull out, and it didn't go around. And Waymo just waited patiently, and I realized that this car is just completely calm.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, I felt even safer. I thought this is sort of the way this is going to sweep over society. I did have a momentary worry about the Uber drivers, though. In terms of the Waymo experience, I think it's actually, in some ways it's even better. But what about the drivers? We talked about the jobs earlier, but I guess what are the
Exactly.
drivers going to do?
I mean, think about Uber drivers, yes, but once that technology gets into trucking, that is that employs more people in more states than anything else, right? So that's
Right.
the most amount of employment in a lot of different states out there. And those are the questions. And this is why I was saying that it is not just a technology revolution. It is going to be an organizational as well as a societal revolution, right? So we have to rethink this.
Hmm.
Think about if, and again, I come back to that. It will either be that these current jobs will get taken over by AI and that will produce new jobs,
Hmm.
or it will be that these jobs will get taken over and the new jobs will get taken over as well. In
Right.
which will
That's
be
my
just
worry, actually. But yeah.
there will be lesser things to do, in which case that's more of a societal question to answer, that if there are not enough jobs to go around for everybody, then what do we do? Because our society is structured around this construct of you do something useful, it's called a job, you get the money, and then that gives you everything. But if there aren't enough things to be done, then what do you do? So this is very important. And of course, this is not in the technology domain, but this is where the governments, this is where the regulations, this is where the futurist side of the equation, this is where the societal, loud thinking, these all need to happen. And I'll go back to how you started. AI is not just like any other technology,
Hmm.
is that inflection point for the human mankind. And we can go
Hmm.
the way we end up being. But the most important thing is get involved and have that conscious thought around it. Don't just follow anybody around. There are too many people saying too many different things, but this is one of those things where each one of us should really spend some time thinking about it and actually just get involved.
Hmm. Nabil, I think you said it. As always, very, very interesting. Thank you very much, and I hope you come back and talk with us again someday.
James, absolute pleasure as always. And we'll see how this goes, right? It'll be fun talking about it over the next few years.
I think this will be a topic for sure. I really do. All righty, take care.